Discussing your salaries at work is perfectly okay and should be normalized. Right after I gave my notice at a job I'd been at for 17 years, I started talking about my pay with other employees for the first time. About how low it is for how long I'd been there. I ended up finding out I was being paid more than someone doing the same job who'd been there for 40 years. Boy, was management mad that got out. They asked me to leave early and told me I was unprofessional, lol. I'll never forget the face of that poor coworker when she found out how much I was making. Definitely discuss salary with everyone. We should all know our worth. Some of my coworkers would be so salty if they knew how much more I made than they do. This is actually quite the popular opinion. Worst case scenario, you will all discover a pay disparity between people doing the same amount of work. Worst case scenario, I have people expecting me to pick up more of the cost of shit. I agree there is nothing wrong with talking about it, but that doesn't mean you should talk to everyone about it. I used to agree with this opinion, till I learned how to negotiate and get more money. At one of my last jobs, I was making just a few cents more than most of my co-workers and they all resented me due to it. You'd like to think people would get mad at the employer, but nope, they resent you. So only talk about your salary if you can determine if you're not an outlier. It's beneficial till you are the one on top. Bad idea. Co-workers will resent you for making more money rather than the employee for paying them less. Lots of people filled with jealousy at job allowing them to know how much you make will influence them to sabotage you. Sort of agree, sort of disagree. If you find out a coworker is making more than you, are you going to ask for a raise? Seems like this could put managers in a tricky situation. If Jill finds out that Joe is making more than her, she could complain to management about him making more, but maybe it is because he is a better worker. I think it would make more sense to push companies to publish salary bands for jobs. Granted, I've worked for mostly small companies and then for myself. Still, my experience, especially from younger days of working in restaurants, etc. Those who complain the most they are underpaid are the laziest workers. There is zero chance they will believe the next girl is paid way more than them because she works much harder. Nothing good can come out of it. Now, worst case scenario that the boss is reluctant to give out a raise even when it's well deserved because they know everyone will come asking for a raise, deserved or not. So maybe I make less than I deserve now, just to keep me on the same level as everyone else. If you think people will only complain when the difference in pay isn't justified, you're naive. Now, of course, there are downsides to not discussing salary, but there's pros and cons any way you slice it. I discuss hours worked on a regular basis. I work at a huge corporation where the general employee's hourly rate is common knowledge too, though. Just last week, one person out of the blue got mad when I asked if their hours were right, because mine didn't look right, and it was just odd to me that someone would get mad about that simple question. Nothing like walking up to the water cooler just to say I am considerably richer than Yahoo. Upvote for complete disagreement. It's nobody's business but mine what I make, and I don't want to hear what my co-workers make either. Another week, another discuss salary post. This is something I wasn't really aware of when I first started working, so I always spoke about this freely. I know I made some people uncomfortable when I asked them their salary, but I really didn't know it was something people didn't share. Nowadays I try to not talk about it as much. Upvote because it's going to unpopular, not that I agree with it. I fight hard enough against dumb, confident peers every day that I do not need to deal with these same people arguing they deserve my salary. Not when I have to constantly come in to clean up their shit after they mess it up. I kinda disagree. This can help people know their worth, but it can and will cause you harm. Either you'll lose your job, get enemies from inside the job, you'll be a target to theft, and co-workers will use you to pay saying you earn more anyway. There is a lot of things that will harm you, and I probably didn't mention all the bad scenarios you'll be put in. It much about the good ones. The only one I know of is if there is a difference in salaries between workers, then you'll be able to find it out. Aside of that, you'll just be called a B for whining about your salary if it was higher than theirs, or arrogant for flexing your salary. I'm not being offensive, I'm just trying to give the most realistic scenarios. I swear I saw this last week. Many salaries are on Glassdoor and LinkedIn already. Every employee in my company is on a LVL 1 to 4 pay grade, and then there's manager, senior manager, and so on. Everyone knows what everyone makes, and in our online profile they even tell you what your next salary is going to be if you are promoted to the next level up. They did something similar at my old company. Fuck, even these seasonal job I worked at gave you a flat extra bonus for every year you returned to work for the season. I'm surprised this is an unpopular opinion, as I don't even see this where I live. The reason corporations discourage it is because when people don't know what their job is worth, they're easier to lowball. It is absolutely none of your business what other people make. If you have an issue with your salary/pay, take it up with management. There are dozens of factors that go into someone's pay. What benefits are they collecting? What is their educational background? Prior experience? Some aspects of their job might be different, unbeknownst to you. Don't start shit because you feel underpaid. Step up your work ethic, find a new job, or simply address it like an adult with management. I'm very open about how much I make. I always have been. Even when I made shit money, I never saw a problem talking about it. I see a problem not talking about it. In reality, it will just make everyone angry and miserable. People who are shit at their jobs will want to be paid the same as someone who works much harder. I see this all the time. People complaining about how much they are paid, and yet I know for a fact they are so bad at what they do that they are lucky to be employed in the first place. And then if you compensate everybody, those who already work hard will lose their motivation. Why invest yourself in a job only to not be rewarded? It's a terrible idea. Not really, cause if a company, for example, has $100 a month for payroll and Sally gets paid $50/month and John and Beth both only get $25 each, if I was Sally I'd keep that shit on lockdown, because when the company gets $125 for payroll I'd want that raise to go to me and not John and Beth. I completely agree. This is a rule in order to try to prevent laborers from collective negotiations and is completely wrong. I don't want to discuss how much I'm paid, as I know I'm one of the highest paid people in my division. Less money for them, more for me. I feel like this is a mainly American problem, where businesses hate workers knowing what each other earn, as it prevents workers from properly negotiating wage increases and fair salaries. It's an example of neoliberal free market capitalism gone very wrong. In most European countries there's normally laws about equal pay, and if an employer is paying two people different amounts for the same job, they'd be open to lawsuit. Also, unions are much stronger in Europe, and knowing what everyone is paid is key in union negotiating. No matter where you live, tell your co-workers what you earn and negotiate wage increases as a group. It'll result in better wages for the vast majority and better working conditions and rights. The best part is, making a couple bucks more per hour, or making a few thousand more per year, doesn't significantly impact your lifestyle. I guess if you both do exactly the same thing with your money, and one of you saves enough in that time to buy an AR-15 or take a Disney cruise, that could be a point of contention, but it's not like everyone is micromanaging their finances to the point where the conversation would reveal a life-changing disparity, right? Right? Is there a guy in my department making 93 cents for every dollar I make who is close to suicide because he can't keep his shit together without the extra 7 cents? Do I know that guy? Maybe we should talk about this. When I discussed my pay raise with my manager, one of my co-workers overheard and got so upset that she quit, over $1.50. As long as you're fine with being fired for sharing your wage, I guess, why not? Your salary is between you and the employer and none of my business, the same as mine is not your concern. I don't care to know what someone else is earning. Knowing that someone else is making more or less for the same position can create animosity between employees as well as resentment towards the employer in general. If there is a professional butt kisser in the office that adds little value to the workplace, I do not want to know that the person is making more than me simply cause they kiss the boss's butt all day. That would do nothing more than piss me off and make me look for a better position somewhere else. Had I not known about the person's salary, would never have happened. That is why employers discourage employees from comparing salaries. I love to see class consciousness. Wage opacity almost universally serves the employer's interests, not the workforce. I'm open about my salary, but for the most part there is a wage schedule based off of your qualifications, so I can pretty much figure out what everyone else makes. I haven't discussed salary with my co-workers as I know I came in higher paid. But I have discussed benefits like vacation and they were a bit pissed but understood that's what you get from negotiating for a new job. Totally agree and think employers should be way more open about salary range for certain roles or level or expertise. I wish salary negotiation was way more common without fear of a no or worse, feeling it could threaten your job. I agree in theory because not discussing 100% benefits your employer, but you also have to be careful because it can cause resentment among colleagues, as much as it shouldn't, but people get jealous. I do it when I feel comfortable, but I have to seriously read the room first. There are two things people will always lie about: how much money they have and who they have sex with, and that's because both of them are private information. Looking at someone else's dick size won't help you get girls, and knowing someone's salary won't make yours bigger. Management don't want you to discuss salaries because it can cause issues for them. Why is X getting paid more than me when we do the same job, etc. At my old job I ended up finding out how much one of my co-worker was being paid. He had been there around 5 years longer than me and I was making around 5K more than him, for the same role. The trick is to work at such a toxic company, where even the highest performers are still underpaid, so even if they get paid more than you, you still don't want their job. Difficult situation. If you find out you make less than others, you're gonna be mad. This is a really popular opinion, so popular that it's the law in many places. This is mainly a thing in Western culture. In India they walk out of the meeting after getting a raise and tell everyone. It's normal in some cultures. Yet, unfortunately, work etiquette unilaterally favors employers. To them, it's easier to make that shot taboo than it is to pay people what they're worth or suffer a rotating door of employees who know they deserve better. Fun fact: if your boss forces you to hide your salary from coworkers, it is illegal. A few years ago a coworker of mine mentioned her salary while in a conversation with me. I don't know if she said the truth, but if she's still only paid that much, she's massively underpaid. You just can't pay a developer $2,000 only. I could ask for more money myself too, but next to my pay we agreed to certain mental health benefits, and as long I can't provide my company 100% reliability, I won't ask for the corresponding money. Keeping them secret benefits the employer, not you or your co-workers. I worked in a cheese factory on the line. Freely spoke of our pay. We were all hourly. Shift differentials, yearly raises, etc. was never an issue. I ended up moving higher in ranks in the company to an office position. I started talking to a coworker about my pay and she threw a fit about how it is inappropriate. Idk. I was taught growing up that asking a person about their wages is rude, but I was once treated very harshly for refusing to discuss my wages with someone I know. I don't like comparing salaries with other people. It doesn't help that some people I know kinda just drool over other people's money, even if it's not that much. I've always said this, but the best promotion you can get is giving it to yourself. Companies will always pay you under what you are worth. It's up to you to go out there and find a pay rise instead of working for it. Found a new job myself and gave myself a $30,000 AUD pay raise this year. If I had stayed at my current job, I doubt I'd even get that after 5 to 10 years of working. Yet, as an employee, there is one major downside to publicly discussing your salary though. You couldn't ask for and your employer couldn't give you a pay rise based on your particular performance. I worked with someone at one place that was at least 25% faster and better at the job than everyone else there, and he should have been paid more for it because he was a fantastic worker, but he wasn't though, as everyone was on the same pay rate as was company policy. Had he and everyone else publicly discussed salary, then if they changed policy, the company could never have offered him the salary he really deserved, because many of the staff would have felt it was unfair in spite of the fact he was an objectively better worker. Agreed, except in certain circumstances where you get robbed by telling the wrong person. It's not about shame, it's about underpaying and overpaying as they see fit. Whenever I see any posts like this, all I think is that God, America could do with most workers having unions like in most of Europe. Assuming you are talking about salaried workers, and since this is the unpopular opinion thread, let me just say that normalizing discussion around pay will only result in lower pay for everyone. Here is my unsolicited career advice: the best way to significantly increase your pay is to leave your company for another. The longer you stay at a company, the lower you will be paid against your peers. Not talking about your pay is a very American thing. Most people would rather talk about their sex life than pay. Most people accept a new job for a pay rate they deem fair. It is only when they find out their co-workers make more than their higher in salary do they believe that rate to be unfair. Also, a lot of new hires will have higher salaries than long-time employees due to the nature of yearly raises being outpaced by market rate. I have personally hired new employees who came in with salaries higher than other people who had been hired 2 to 3 years earlier. Yes, I agree. In my country, negotiating hard for your salary is not common at all. I am one of few who does it, every year, and because of that make several €100 more than my colleagues in the same role. They wouldn't be happy if it was all out in the open, but it would be on the employer and not on me. In my job, whatever grade you're in, you get the same as everyone else in the same grade. Funny what a union can do. What about discussing salaries with people outside your work? What's your opinion on that? I'm not talking about close friends and family, I'm talking about maybe a new acquaintance. Problem is, the workplace is like high school a lot of times. People start rumors and talk crap about each other. If you are paid more than most of your co-workers, you're probably better off not letting everyone know. People get salty and jealous. You should share your salaries with co-workers who are mature. The information will help you know your worth, negotiate better, etc. This requires a maturity level and perspective that many do not have. Hey, I heard the IT guy, Mike, makes 90K. What? Fuck that guy, I manage a sales team and he more than me. I recently saw someone not get approved for a promotion because the position required a 10K annual salary increase. What happened? The group providing the funding was jealous IT made so much more than those not in IT. That was their official response. 100% true, I'm the hiring manager. Could not believe what I heard. Crazy thing is that they agreed to the funding before the recruitment and selected the candidate, but when it came down to dollar they bitched out. Companies prior to COVID had zero power over their employees because unemployment was so low. Now that it's at like 12%, I'm sure they will tighten up. But yes, I think it's valuable to talk about money and what everyone makes. It allows people to share advice. What do you mean your house interest rate is 4%? Don't you know about refinance? Oh thanks man. What do you mean you only put 1% in your 401k? The company matches 6%. Thanks man. Some people need help and they don't even realize it.